both of you. I mean, you've spoken about the demands of teaching and writing. I mean, Michiel, you're just an absolute machine. How do you do it?
Well, I don't teach, you see.
Are you a Coetzee like author that sits down every day, gets up?
I wish. I mean, I read about Coetzee and his very disciplined method of writing. My great hero Henry James started writing at 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock, and he didn't allow himself to be interrupted. It was sacrosanct. I sit down and my dog nudges me and go and feed him, and I'm totally undisciplined.
It sounds almost pastoral.
Yes, yes it is. It's very relaxed. Yeah, I can recommend early retirement, except just make sure that you bring a pension with you. Because that shrinks. Yes, no, I'm not disciplined, but as Leon said, now and again when you're writing, all of a sudden it takes off. Then in some days you write 20 words. Some days you can write 2,000 words, you know, and really, basically because I'm not working, I'm not teaching. There's a lot of time, you know. So even though I may seem prolific, I certainly don't seem to myself to be working all the time. But I think the wonderful thing about having all that time is you can work any time. I mean, you can wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and work because you know you don't have to teach tomorrow morning, or not. So it's the freedom. And I will say, you know, I'm a Calvinist, so I have a work ethic. So I'm not going to ever just say, well, I'm not going to work today, and let's go to the beach. I tend not to do that. So in a way, I'm conscientious but not structured.
Michiel's level of prolificness, is that a word? Is quite astonishing. And I mean, I heard a story about Michiel. You were at a writing retreat. Tell me this is true. And you were struggling with a particular novel, and you decided you'll go back to that other novel you're also writing.
Yeah.
And you finished that one first.
Yes. Yes. Well, this again is that. I mean, the problem of too much freedom. I was at this writing retreat where I didn't even have a dog. So you have all day to write, and I dried up. I sat there. I went for long walks. It was absolutely beautiful. And then I decided, well, this is not going to work. And so I went back to, as Leon says, to a novel I started a long time ago. So that's what I'm working at.
Does it have a title yet?
At this stage, it's called Strange Matters. It's a quotation from Macbeth. Your face, my fane, is as a book where men may read strange matters.
Oh, portentous.
Yeah. Anyway, that's very provisional. And I'm enjoying writing it, as Leon was saying. If it takes off, it's wonderful. If it doesn't, it can. I mean, there's nothing as terrible. Well, I'm sure there's things more terrible than writer's block, but
like
for a run, it really is terrible because it's a form of depression. You can't write. You think you're never ever going to be able to write.
Well, you think you're useless.
You think you're useless
to the world.
Yeah, well, to yourself. So that's awful. But that's what I did in the past. Was if I got stuck, which I did on Lost Ground, I got stuck halfway through. So then I started writing what became Invisible Furies, and I'd write Invisible Furies and get stuck. Then I'd write Lost Ground again. So that's
it's also a messy process.
It's very messy, and that's why the two of them appeared quite close to each other, because I was writing them simultaneously. And really, I can recommend that for writer's block. If you get blocked on one novel, just start writing another one and see, because the other one always seems more attractive than the one you just dropped. And then this one that you've abandoned starts looking more attractive as the other one runs dry. So that way you can keep going.
Are you ever going to write anything in Afrikaans? Is dit 'n moeilike vraag?
Dis 'n moeilike vraag. Ek weet nie.
Hoekom nie?
Ek weet nie. Ek het probeer. My Afrikaans is klink vir my vreeslik kunsmatig. Ek weet nie hoekom, maar my Engels is vir my meer gemaklik as my Afrikaans. Ek begin so 'n bietjie akademies skryf as ek Afrikaans. Want in my eerste roman, Children's Day, almal sê dit behoort net in Afrikaans geskryf te wees. Dan is dit die vryste taal. Maar ek het probeer, maar mense klink verkeerd.
Yeah, I once wrote a novella in Afrikaans just for the hell of it. Just to see, because Afrikaans is my second language, but I have this sort of historical sense that it should have been my first language. My father is a verloopte Afrikaner. What they, married an English doll. And I wrote this novella in Afrikaans just to feel that testing of the edge all the time, so that the language is not quite at home in your mouth. And there's something quite interesting about that process. But ultimately, it's like the same thing I say to translators: never translate into any but your mother tongue. So if your mother tongue is Afrikaans, primarily don't translate into English, because it shows in the fine grain of the idiom. Always shows.
I'd like to ask you both about the impact that you feel, the impact that the rise of independent book publishers, Kindle, and sort of the transnationalisation of fiction and internationalisation of fiction. How do you feel that's affected the local publishing industry? And your work maybe as well. Is it your dream to be published overseas? I mean, does it really matter to you? Is a local readership enough?
It's never enough. Nothing is ever enough. No, you're right. Partly also because you'd like to sell, and obviously there's a whole international machine now selling, and you'd love to be part of that. I do like the fact that I have a local publisher, I have a local following, and it's all I would have asked for 20 years ago. But of course you agree. So now. Being published here, you would like to be part of that. Amazon, number 3 on Amazon, and that kind of thing, quite apart from the money. Certainly in my case, this kind of international thing has made very little difference. Yes, my books are available as e-books. I don't think they're selling very significantly there. But obviously it's good that they're there and that they're available. In the end, I think we all have a kind of sentimental attachment to the independent bookstore, book lounge, Kock books, where places run by human beings who care about books, because you feel that's what reading is all about. And I'd far rather be sold there than on the internet, except the internet just sells more copies. So, and I always feel guilty when I order a book. I think I should be buying from Kock books or whatever, but it's half the price. So it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, interesting question. Just on the e-books front, I do think that the future of publishing is a hybrid future, and the old debate that we had in the 90s, e-books versus real books, and there were very reactionary positions on both sides, I think is now outlived its purpose. And people recognize that many people have allegiance to the material book, but as many of us and more need to use e-readers on flights, on the move, when you can buy a book in 10 seconds. That said, I've done some interesting work with my MA student, Ryan James, on the possible conventions and protocols for creating enhanced fiction in e-publishing formats, where you do very, very interesting things with format. So you create contextual aids, you have dictionary assistance, you have background, you can choose or not whether you want these things, but you can hit a button and get some background information, you can interview with the author, you can get an academic talking about this book. Certainly things you want and need when you read J.M. Coetzee's new novel. You need somebody to help you. What's going on here?
Who would help you on that one? I think I I've read every review of that book, and the one thing that they all have in common is they don't know what that book is about. I thought your review was wonderful in stating the problem of dealing with the book.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But there's also a trope of Coetzee criticism. And then another trope of Coetzee criticism is to get impatient with the people who are all saying, well, we don't really know what's going on here, but it's very interesting, and there are lots of levels here. And spot the levels.
It's like Marlene.
But, and is anybody ever going to pin this man down and challenge him, or to challenge the other critics to say, what is it really about? Because it's about everything and nothing at the same time. But just on the other aspect of your question, which is transnational, there's this argument, and I've been complicit in this argument in some of my articles in the press and in journal form, that South African fiction is transnationalized, which means we've broken the boundaries of the nation. We're no longer apartheid special case. The world has changed, and we no longer relate primarily in national terms. We are transnational beings, and we are world citizens, and therefore our fiction is also expanding. And this is indicated also, or shown by the examples of Coetzee going to Australia, writing books like Slow Man, of Michiel writing a book like Bodies Politic, which takes place in London in the early 20th century. And yet it seems to be making some comments about our politics here, but in a very low key. And then, of course, the Lauren Bierkes phenomenon. And you have to start asking questions about this easy sort of transnational paradigm when it gets to the Lauren Bierkes type situation, where it is now simply a horror novel set in Chicago. Whether we're dealing with anything remotely resembling South African fiction. And I don't think we should celebrate that too automatically or too easily. We should ask some questions about the paradigm to attenuate the localism and the specificity. So this thing about Google Maps and dropping into Italy, you might just argue from Lucacio's perspective that deep form is social, right? Deep form and deep locality cannot be grasped by using Google Maps. And I'm not saying you do this.
No, listen, I think you're right.
It's something it's much more embedded in the way people speak and the way people understand things socially, and the way form finds a way of presenting that. So I think we should be on the lookout for that. So while we become transnational, I think there's some merit to remaining, in a sense, also regionally specific. The Athol Fugard example is the one that's so telling. Fugard always said, I'm a regional writer.
But, I absolutely agree, but we can't carry on writing contrast stories forever. There is a different kind of, there is a world elsewhere. Well, and I think one is within one's right to explore that, although I agree with you that you're never going to know it in that way, that kind of closeness of, if you look at, the 19th century novelists, they were writing from, localities that they knew. I just find it difficult, but I can see what I lose, and I always have to write from an outsider's perspective, because I'm not writing from within that center, that place that I have.
Yes, interesting you use the word contrast stories. And I think contrast stories would be the example that you don't really want to emanate, which is regionally chauvinistic in its felt and flay charm. I think you're looking for a contrary type story that does what the Antwoord does. They take the hyper-local or hyper-specific and they blast it straight onto the world map without bypassing the national completely, deliberately. It's something more like that.
How about Bosman? No, he writes contrast stories, but he really sends up the whole thing, because he's satirizing what he's writing about. At the same time, it's very deeply embedded in that locality and in those people.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting that Bosman has never quite attained to the universal world writer status. That his writing has remained, in a sense, almost parochial in its readership. And yet it's unquestionably excellent writing. It's kind of a hybrid example.
It's sort of odd that it hasn't received, as far as I know, any kind of reception overseas. Anyway, that's the story.
Both of you are reviewers of local books, and you must read ahead of them. I know both of you do. I'd like you to talk a little bit about the kind of reviewing culture that we've seen emerge, particularly in South Africa, where writers are reviewing other writers. Do you think this thing is helpful? Is there a kind of politics that's just too obvious?
We know what the problem is here. And, I've sat down and had a seminar or two with my contemporary literary practice students. Some of them are here today. And we have hammered out a reviewing manifesto. I won't mention names, but there have been some examples recently that have been particularly or strikingly personal and vicious, although there's no shortage of such examples in South African reviewing history. So
there's one in particular.
Yeah, so but the kind of close quarter slash and burn infighting, which is difficult because it has both an intra-institutional application and then, but it gestures rhetorically at being outwardly genuflected towards readership. But it actually the inner viciousness of that fight, it has nothing to do with the readers. And what was interesting about my honest students and their reaction is they actually found it personally offensive. They think it's insulting. They can sense that there's an inappropriate level of animus here.
You can feel it.
You can feel that it's almost like, I mean, everybody loves blood sports to a certain extent. And in the reviewing culture, you see they love the blood sport element. People say, oh, I've seen the new review of so-and-so about so-and-so, and he's really taken him down. But on serious consideration, your younger readers who have nothing to do with that too close culture of people striking back at each other, just are not interested. It's not their fight, they don't want to have anything to do with it. So the old verities came back in this manifesto that we hope to publish soon on one or two literary websites is if it's personal, if you know the person too well, don't review the person. If you like the person too much, don't review the person. If you dislike the person, don't review. In all cases, keep to the book that you're reviewing. Be contextual. Don't deliver value judgments without any substantiation. This is remarkable how these most well-known and respected academics make these incredible statements with no substantiation whatsoever of sweeping value. That should not be acceptable within an ethics of good, clean reviewing. So we do have a problem.
How do you feel?
Yes, I mean, there's definitely, well, of course, our main problem is that ours is such a small community. So I agree with Leon, don't review someone you know too well. But, you know, you get to know more and more people. So
and you get money for book reviews.
Yes, I'm no longer reviewing, by the way, not really, because the Sunday Independent closed down its freelance sort of wing. So, but anyway, at the time, people would sometimes used to send me books and say, please review this. And I said, no, I can't. I mean, the sheer fact that you sent it to me means I can't review it. Send it to the editor and she'll send it out to Joe. So yes, I think that the golden rule there is a decent distance from the book and from the writer. I have reviewed books by people I know, but not people I know particularly well. But you can't really avoid that. And then, what do you do with a book that you really think is very weak?
And it's dangerous to your prospects and your future to say what you think.
Yes, and then, yes, I mean, some people say, well, then don't review it. Fair enough, but other people would say, but the reviewer does have a duty also to say, listen, this book is not very good. I mean, or is it not the reviewer's duty? I think, if we may mention an example, I mean, Nadine Gordimer's latest book is really very poor. Now, it was very interesting to see how reviewers sort of wriggled around that one. Interestingly, the overseas reviewers were more medium-mouthed than the South African reviewers. And some South African reviewers were quite outspoken and said it's a sad thing that this book has been published because it's not doing Nadine Gordimer any good. And I think that's within one's right to say that. As long as it's not malicious. I mean, I think one of the most critical reviews of Nadine Gordimer was by Carina Brink, who's a good friend of Nadine Gordimer. I thought it was extremely courageous. But what do you do? I think I would have chickened out of review. So yeah, it remains also a negotiation, and very often it's a kind of personal thing. But it's also true that some people take an unholy delight in a really
Hatchet jobs.
Yeah, and I don't think that's attractive. It's sometimes amusing if it's done, wittily, but even then, it's an inferior kind of joy, I think.
I do think also that one might consider moving away from the win or lose game. It's like literary prizes. It's like literary prizes, carrots and sticks. It's too obvious. Literary prizes. I mean, the whole problem with literary prizes is there's only one winner, and there are at least 10 worthy contenders. So the real prize is the shortlist. But even that is very iffy, whether who makes it, who doesn't make it. And perhaps in reviewing, you might consider a more textured approach where you don't say carrot or stick, but you describe the novel and you give a more sort of with more negative capacity, as Keith would have said, an understanding of the feel of what's going on, and then leave some of that deciding to the reader. I just think reviewers really treat readers poorly, insult their intelligences a lot by speaking for them, or offering them sweeping judgments without any substantiation, or just offering these
summaries,
these measly mouthed kind of reviews that say nothing.
I think a good review must be equally useful to someone who's read the novel and someone who hasn't read the novel. Because for the person who hasn't read the novel, you give them some idea of what it might be. Someone who has read the novel, you give them something to kick against, to agree with, a point of view. Because you never quite know about you. Some people like reading reviews of books that they have read. Others like to read reviews instead of book. So, and I think you try and get it for both.
A local or international novel that you've really enjoyed recently?
Oof, yes. Okay, I read The Spiral House by Claire Robertson. She lives in Kock, it's local. Very good. It's very good. It's just appeared. The Spiral House.
I've read a couple that I can't remember, but I'm still reading Infinite Jest for David Foster Wallace's Madness.
That is a tone.
I think we should all at least try to read David Foster Wallace.
It's a noble gesture. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I think our time is up. So we've got about 2 or 3 minutes if anyone has a question for the guest. Yes.
I just want to find out, when both of you write, do you write using pencil or do you go straight into, because I'm often asking writers, what's the best thing to do? Because there's an assumption that if you write straight onto your computer, you're not really writing. You get a pencil and I don't know what's the best.
I write straight on the computer. When I get stuck, I often take a pencil because I think it may loosen up something in your mind if you just scrawled something. But usually I write straight onto the computer.
Yeah, if I'm writing poetry, it's in a journal and it's scribbly, and then I later rework it from there onto the keyboard. If I'm writing prose, it's straight onto the keyboard.
I don't think I could have ever written a novel if the word processor hadn't come along. That's liberating.
If I can go back to the use of language in translation.
Yes.
Marlene once told me that when translating from Afrikaans to English, she prefers that the grain of Afrikaans is present in the English text. Even though Triumph works with a specific kind of Afrikaans, do you think that this should be present in all from Afrikaans to English? That one can sense that this is a translation?
Absolutely. You must know that you are reading a translation in the sense that you are reading a text that technically is written in English words, but is actually behind the scenes spoken in Afrikaans. So that's the trick. That's the difficult trick, to keep that grain of. And translation is always a form of illusionism. So you're playing a game with the reader where you both maintain the illusion that you're actually in the other language. You're just using this as a medium for the other language, but you need, in order to make that illusion work, give the language that you happen to be using the grain and the texture of the underlying language. That's the way I see it.
Yes, absolutely. Except, of course, something like, say, the Connemara biography of Coetzee, then it's a much different kind of translation. The grain you don't really want. But yes, certainly something like Marlene's book, or even Venter, or Etienne van Heerden, you do want something of that grain. The risk you run is that people will say it's bad English. You know, that has happened to one of my translations.
The case I'm struggling with now is if Afrikaans in certain ways of using an infection tends to be more literal, more spoken out in terms of exactly what you're saying. English tends to use metaphors and idioms more comfortably. Now, what do you do? Do you render an over-literal translation, or do you introduce an element of styling in the target language? That becomes problematic. So it's never easy.
I was just wondering about the thing about writing, when you were speaking about how you write, and not always being, off those 2 hours, or like academic process. I believe that's because it's like inspiration, it's experience. You write as you. It's not hard work, that's how you do it. But I mean, in writing, do you think writing is equivalent to experience? I mean, having great experiences and writing great things, is that?
I would say that even reading is an experience, so you're drawing on not necessarily what one might call lived experience, but everything that you know is part of your experience. I don't think you need necessarily have killed a lion like that, or had before you can write a novel. Some of the great writers are people that nothing on earth ever happened to. Again, you think of Henry James. So I think it depends on how you define experience. I think experience, this is an experience.
And a different way of hearing your question, I may have it wrong, is that is the process of writing almost like the process of experiencing the very thing that you're writing? And I have, strangely enough, I had that exact feeling when translating Triumph, more than in any other case, where I wrote about this in one of the articles about that translation, is that I sensed I was in a kind of space of interlanguage. And Walter Benjamin talks about this. He talks about this notion of a pure language that is not reducible to any of the specific idioms that people use, but we all aspire to this pure language, this space of ultimately, not correct, but suitable, precise expression, exact expression. And I felt that I was almost in that space in the writing, and it's almost as though paradoxically, the writing was disappearing because I was very intensely in the experience of it, which doesn't make any sense, but yes, it does feel like that.
Okay, it's just on 2 o'clock, so if we need to get back to class, something like that. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.